Hey, what up, family? This is Doug Reed with the Let's Go Show. Amazing individuals. I come across so many amazing individuals, and I came across this young lady in some training. And when you're amazed at people's story, then you hear their story on one end, and then even starting this podcast, I was like, oh, you know who I could interview? I could interview Mallory. So I took this opportunity just to reach out to her, and she responded quickly. So, Mallory, how are you doing?
Douglas, anytime I get to talk to you, I'm doing great. It's good to see you.
Yeah, and it's a pleasure to actually talk to you. And and I know because I want people to really know who you are. I don't want to just screw up your name and say your name because like I told you, I think that's disrespectful. So can you say your full name for us?
You got it. I'm Mallory Dwinal-Palisch. I just go by Mallory.
I love it. See, I didn't want to be, like I said, disrespectful. And I think that's amazing because I think that's where we're going to kind of lead off into like, who's this? Who's Mallory? So let's just jump right into it. Tell us a little about the young Mallory.
Absolutely. Oh, young Mallory, she's a piece of work. So let me tell you about young Mallory. I was born to a big Irish Catholic family that grew up in a small rural farm town, a little bit outside the Mississippi River. And I am one of, over dozens of cousins on each side of the family. And my pretty traditional Irish Catholic family. My mom stayed home with the kids. My dad worked. My dad didn't have a college degree, but he'd sort of worked his way up from underwater welder to bouncer to eventually owning his own outdoor power equipment store, Dwinal Outdoor Power Equipment, or
Mhm.
DOPE for short. And right as I was going into preschool, my dad lost everything in the Mississippi River floods. They came through and destroyed the power equipment building. And my parents thought, well, people are going to need power equipment to clean up from the flood. So they put everything they had, all of their savings, everything they had into reopening that store. And 2 days later, the floods came back. And after they reopened, the floods came back and destroyed home, business, everything again. And so when my parents are the age that I am right now, they were bankrupt, homeless, multiple kids under the age of 5, with really nothing, had to completely rebuild. And so I always had a super happy childhood, but it was because my parents worked so hard and sacrificed so much, and they moved around a ton. And around the time I was going into my freshman year of high school, we'd landed in Washington State. And right about 2 months into my freshman year of high school, our house burned down and my parents lost everything for a second time. And the reason that really matters is, we moved around a ton as a kid. And I always had these great public school teachers at every turn who were there to help take care of me. And when my home burned down, when I was a freshman in high school, I was really fortunate that I had this track teacher or track coach who was also an English teacher at the school named Patty Lay. And Patty Lay just decided that I was going to be her project. She was going to make sure that I did well and that I made it through. And so I did. And I went to this big 2,000 person high school, but I was never going to slip through the cracks. I was never going to get lost or be allowed to give anything other than my best because I had this person at the school who was really hard on me, but was always really looking out for me, right? She would cuss me out up and down when I was out of line, but she also would let me spend the night at her house. And she would bring me track spikes to make sure that I had what I needed to compete for the different meets that we were in. So that's me. I think to know who I am today is to know who the teachers were that helped me along the way. And
Wow.
and Patty's at the top of that list.
Let me stop you. Because I'm curious to hear about this athlete, this track star.
That's the funniest thing about it. I was not an athlete. I was not very good. And I think that was what was really special about Patty is that Patty did not invest in me because I was going to be, a national champion. She invested in me because I was a kid who needed someone to invest in her. And she knew that. And so I was just okay as an athlete. I actually went to college for debate, not for sport
Ah,
athletics. And so I was always way better at other things than I was at track. But Patty didn't care. For Patty, this was about character, this was about integrity, and it didn't matter if you were her rock star or if you were the worst person on the team. She was going to make sure that you got there as a person.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. One of the things, same thing. I was an athlete, but I wasn't the best. But I think that's so important because those are the role models, those coaches uh, that play a significant part in our lives that kind of mold us. Um, that nobody, like we talked about before, like nobody knows who they are, uh, but they see something in you that they just know, like, yo, this little girl is special, and I'm just going to do everything in my power to actually bring out the best in her, to actually bring out, uh, to show my appreciation, my love, and a support system I have to actually move you along. And of
That's
course, for you to just realize that and really get an understanding, and we'll talk about the work that you do, that was a foundation. That was a foundation of who Mallory is and who Mallory's becoming, who Mallory will be. And even, we'll talk about some things that's happened since then. But that just shows the importance of that, and even the role that you play now. So even though that, not a real big track star, but I have to really compliment you on the foundation and understanding it. So even after this, your high school years, what happens next?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I then go off to college and um I get to go and have this incredible experience where, because of Patty, Patty is the one who taught me that it doesn't matter if someone's watching you or telling you what to do or not. This is what it means to be great. And so I got to college and the lights really turned on for me, and I did really well. And I was fortunate enough to win a scholarship that paid then for all of my graduate school. But the question is, what was my graduate school going to be in, right? So the scholarship is a scholarship called the Rhodes Scholarship, and it just pays for you to go to Oxford and to live in England for anywhere from 2 to 4 years to study whatever you want, to do whatever you want. And they give you a stipend, they pay for tuition. Is this incredible opportunity. And all the way through college, I'd watched how hard my dad struggled without a college degree. And I'd watched how hard it was on my family going through that struggle. And so when I first started college, I was an economics and finance major, business minor. I was going to go into business. My Mallory's plan at 18 was very brilliant. It was very simple. It was go to college, become a millionaire, retire. Like that was the plan, right?
It makes sense to me.
Good plan, right? Great plan. And then as I got into my senior year, I went through the day before. I had, sort of 3 days in a row, back to back to back. September 11th, I found out that I had been accepted to Harvard Business School after I graduated. I was like, great, I'm going to go to grad school in England for a few years. I'm going to go back to business school. I'm going to go into finance. That was my plan. That was on September 11th. September 12th, they found a tumor living kind of pressed up against my rib cage. And September 13th, I started my senior year of college. And that was sort of this 3-day back-to-back experience. And everything turned out to be fine. We removed the tumor and everything was okay. But it was this first time in my life that I had to grapple with the fact that it's not just that life can be hard sometimes, it's that life is not permanent. I was going to be gone at some point. And that had never occurred to me before as a 22-year-old. That had never been a real thing. And so I looked around and realized that I loved studying economics. I loved the idea of business. I didn't actually care at all about any of the internships, any of the work I'd done in that space. But I'd been volunteering in schools all the way through college because schools and teachers had been so important to me. And so I had this realization of, oh shit, I'm in the wrong place, right? I want to go into education, but I don't know what that means. I don't know. I had no teaching background. I had no real experience around the careers or professions there. So I got to the end of college and realized that I was in the wrong industry and needed to switch tracks.
Wow. I mean, a couple of things come to mind first because I don't have a college education. Um, what the application say? I remember, before coming out of the military, even going into the prison system. But I remember the application saying highest level completed, and then some applications there was a box that said some college, and that was me, some college. You know, like you, same thing. I you know, I come to realization. I remember my sister. My sister Carla worked for a company called Frisch's. Frisch's Big Boy, but she works in the main corporate office. And I remember just going up there to see her, and I seen all these guys in their shirt and ties. And I was like, oh, I want to be in business. Like, I just want to wear a shirt and tie, you know? And I went to school for accounting, was doing well. Was doing pretty, I'll say it's doing pretty good. Well, my first year of college, I was on probation. So the second year, I come off probation. So now I'm in accounting and I'm doing pretty good. But of course, with, finances, I'm like, I can't continue to, I was driving a good 45 minutes to go to school. It was at Raymond Walters Technical College. I don't know what it is now, but I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And the other alternative that I knew, I joined the military. So the thing I ask you is, how was that point where you realize this is not for me? And was there anything additional that said, I'm going to give it all up? Just not give up the education, but I'm going to give up all my foundation of my training to really seek a path in education.
Absolutely. And you raise this really important piece, by the way, that I want to come back to, which is my sister. This is an incredible woman named Caitlin. Well, I'll come back to her in a minute. First, to
Mm-hmm.
your question. So, I had no idea what I was going to do, but I just won this scholarship to pay for me to go to England for 2 years. I was like, well, maybe I'll become an academic, right? And I'll study education. So I went and I did my PhD in education. And I hated it. Oh, I hated it so much, Douglas. I was just not meant to be the person who was sitting and researching and writing. It was just not who I was. And so but I knew I still needed, like, I was in the right field, just not working in the right role. So after that, I became a classroom teacher and I taught middle and high school Spanish. And I really loved the idea of being a teacher. But the honest truth was, I hated being a teacher. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason for that was, I think we don't have enough honest conversations with people of, God put you on this earth to be exactly what you are.
Mm-hmm.
I do not thrive doing the same thing twice in a row, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
idea that every day at 8 a.m. I was going to be having the same ninth grade Spanish class, and every day at 9 a.m. was going to be the same 10th grade Spanish class. I just couldn't do it. And so after that, I did go back to business school, and I realized that entrepreneurship in education was the role for me. And so that's what I do now. I first founded a high school that does apprenticeship-based learning for high school students. And then I founded a university that does apprenticeship-based learning for people who want to be teachers. And it actually comes back to what inspired that was watching people like my dad, and actually my sister Caitlin, coming back to her, who had the exact same thing that you just said. Caitlin is one of the smartest people I know. She has this mind that things just click for her fast. And Caitlin also does not have a college degree. She started college and she got a semester 2 into it and was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what I'm going to use this for. And saying a lot of the same things you said, she left. And it's funny to watch because Caitlin is now the manager of a store at a Starbucks. And when Caitlin has to talk about managing her store, she's talking about all of these concepts that I learned, not just in college, that I learned at Harvard Business School, right? Around inventory control and P&L management and HR, all of these issues that I learned at graduate school. Caitlin just gets and understands. But Caitlin does not have the piece of paper. She's got the experience, right? She's got the work, she's got the experience, but she does not get the credit the same way my dad doesn't get the credit. He's now
Mm-hmm.
passed, but he didn't when he was alive, he didn't get that credit. And that always just felt really unfair to me, right? That these people are so smart, but without that piece of paper, we're not going to acknowledge that. And so that's what I do now. So Reach University is a university that does apprenticeship-based degrees and says, let's take people who are doing this work every day. Let's give them credit for that. Let's give them academic content that they can then apply on the job. And let's turn the job into a college degree instead of making people leave and go sit in an ivory tower and wonder when they're ever going to use this.
Wow. And what do you find out? And I know you guys don't had, graduations and, things, the facts that, people, going on to the next level. But what is so rewarding about that process when you see an individual come into the university and complete it? Based on, just like you said, what you guys are doing is amazing, taking basically a lived experience and some of the things they're doing, and then actually transforming that to much more. But what is the rewarding part from the time they begin to the time they finish?
I think there's two parts that are equally rewarding. The first is for them, and then the second is for, the people that they serve with that degree. So Reach University, we focus again, as you can tell with my theme, if there's anything I love on this earth, it's teachers. And so what we do as a university is we take people who are working in school buildings as teachers' aides, as after school volunteers, as track and field or football or basketball coaches, and we help them earn their college degree. We turn that job plus our coursework into a college degree that allows them to not only not take on student loan debt, but to actually get paid to earn their degree. We pay, like the federal government pays for all of their tuition, and they go and they work in their school every day and they get paid for that. And at the end of 4 years, they get a college degree and his job as a teacher in their school. And the two things that I think are so rewarding about that is, first, for them, our average person is a mom or a dad in their 40s with a couple of kids who probably tried college at some point and dropped out, not because they weren't smart enough, but because college didn't work with life, right? They couldn't afford to not take care of their kids. They couldn't afford to drive 2 hours each way to get to their campus. And so one of the things that's really rewarding is watching these people who have spent their whole life being told that they're somehow lesser than because they didn't get a degree, not because they weren't smart enough, but just because, like you said, life got in the way. Watching what it does for them to have that pride of, I got a degree from a university that has the exact same accreditation as a Stanford or a Berkeley or any of these other elite colleges. I have a college degree exactly the same. That's the first thing. The second thing that's really meaningful for me is these are people who are working in the schools where they were born and raised, and then going back and being teachers in those schools. And so for them to, the kids they're teaching are the kids they're going to church with, whose moms they went to church with 20 years ago, and who they see in the grocery store, and who, they see on the street on weekends. And what does it mean for those kids to walk into that building each day and to see someone who doesn't just look like them, but talks like them, sounds like them, grew up in the same place as them? What does it mean for them to see that person get their college degree and to become an educated person that has the whole world in front of them? And that means something, right? That's an intergenerational opportunity that is the most important thing we'll ever see happen.
Yeah, I think that's amazing because, especially, well, it's twofold. One, because I think we have to believe so much in community, just with everything that's going on in this world. And community is so important right now. I had the opportunity. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. Graduated from Cincinnati Withrow, and I had an opportunity to bring a Harlem Globetrotter, through connections, to my high school. Not only that, but I spoke. He spoke and I spoke. But the thing that really took it to another level, and you just said it, I had to speak to a generation that it was probably grandchildren. You know what I mean? I was thinking, like, wow, this is amazing. But this is how we continued our legacy. This is how we talk about your dad and the hard work that he put in. The hard work that, hey, not having an education, but one thing I am a worker, and I can be a provider. This is about, mom showing you certain things, and your sister, even though she's not at the, didn't come from the highest level of education within, a Harvard, but she has a life education, and everybody that comes through that store, being able to provide them, some of that input that, not only that she learned from your family values, but even from you. Because I rest assured she would say the same thing about you, how proud she is of you because of your accomplishments. And of course, what you took, from your education, what you took from your lived experiences, and started a university. Like, I think about the things like, who does that? You hear kids say it all the time, like, who does that? What was that driving force that you said, look, like, I understand the dynamics of everything. I ain't gonna say everything, all this, the education. I understand the dynamics of a lack of. I understand the dynamics of community. What was that ultimate driving force And even to step out, let's say they step on faith to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be that entrepreneur to take what I believe and what I see and start a university. What was that driving force?
I think it really was faith. And I think it comes down to this question of faith. And, there's this quotation that I'm going to butcher, but it goes something to the effect of, you'll be tempted to ask yourself, who am I to do this? And the more important question is, who are you not to do this? And what I mean by that is, I saw the damage that our traditional higher education system did to people in my family who are brilliant, who I learned so much from every single day, right? For as much as Caitlin might have learned from me, I promise you I've learned twice as much from her. And to see that none of the knowledge she has counted, and to realize that someone had just arbitrarily decided that we were going to count things that you learned from a book, but not things that you learned out in the real world, that book was written about. Someone just arbitrarily decided that. And so at a certain point, you look around and you see the people you love being hurt by this arbitrary system. And the question is not, who am I to start my own university, but who am I not to? Who am I to be given these opportunities? All of the sacrifices that my family, my teachers, my friends made for me to have those opportunities. Who am I to then take the gift that I've been given and to play it safe, and to not say, listen, I've been in these elite classrooms. They are no different than the knowledge that my sister has or that my dad had. And we need to start recognizing it the same way. Who would I be to be given those gifts and to not do something to pay that back and to pay that forward?
Wow. Only thing I keep hearing. I mean, that was said beautifully. And the thing that I hear is, who am I not?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, like who am I not to do it? Because a lot of times, we hear it the other way, but who am I not? And then for you to realize it and then say, I'm just going to do it. Give me some numbers. I'm kind of curious of numbers if you have them, of
Yeah,
some of the accomplishments by Reach University.
absolutely. So our graduate program has been around since 2011, accredited as a master's program since 2017. They have had at the graduate level, 5 years after people graduate, we see that 90% of them are still working in a school building one way or another, right? They're working as a teacher, as an instructional leader, as a school leader. At the undergraduate level, what we're seeing is, there's now about, this fall, we'll have about 1,500 students enrolled in our undergraduate degree. And they are about 60% BIPOC. They're about 90% low income, first generation or working parents. And they are 100% coming from the communities they serve, which are low income communities with teacher shortages. And that background, they are persisting through our programs at the same rate as white, middle, and high income families going through traditional four-year programs. And so we're seeing these people come from backgrounds that historically have just been told college is not for you, right? They've been told that you are not who college is for. They typically do not have success in those programs. And many of our people are people who tried college before and didn't make it through for things that had nothing to do with their intellect. And we're seeing them persist through our programs at the same level as people coming through those affluent backgrounds in by the thousands, right? Not one or two people here and there. We're seeing this happen at scale.
Wow, that is amazing. I mean, that is just and this is why, I told you I have to interview Mallory, and I know some things that's actually taken place since the last time we met. I'm getting kind of personal here, show us, tell us some, I need names, I need ages,
Yep.
Share some things with us.
Absolutely. So my husband and I just had our first baby. It's a little girl. Her full name is Elizabeth Lorraine for her grandmothers, but she goes by Ellie Lou for short. We are Southerners after all. And Ellie Lou is a big part of when I think about this plan for the future of what does this need to be. Ellie Lou gave us a scare. She was born early. The day she came home from the hospital, she was 4 pounds, 3 ounces. And she's just the kid who's needed all kinds of extra help, right? She needs physical therapy. She's getting fitted right now. My husband has her getting fitted for her helmet that she's going to need to wear this summer, for cranial development. And she's just the kid that was born early. She's our miracle, and she's always going to need a little bit of extra help. And when I look down the barrel of what our school system, both K-12 and higher education is, I can't help but worry, right? What is that system going to tell a kid like Ellie Lou, who is wonderful and perfect, but is showing the signs that she's going to be different in all of her own ways? Is that system going to help her see that those differences are what makes her beautiful and what makes her brilliant? Or are they going to make her feel like she's less than, and this is not for her, and make her question and doubt herself and what she's capable of? And unfortunately, my concern is that it will be the latter, in the same way that it was that for different reasons for my sister, for my dad, and for millions of other Americans. And so when I think about where this is going, Reach University, no one group can do it themselves. What I always like to say is ecosystem problems, like K-12 and higher ed not serving our students, that's an ecosystem problem. Ecosystem problems need ecosystem solutions. And so this is not something that Reach University is going to solve. But we're launching as an institution, in collaboration with a bunch of other universities and state leaders, something called the Center for the Apprenticeship Degree. And our goal is we want 10 million apprenticeship degree graduates in the next 10 years from all 50 states, across thousands of universities, that help people not just get degrees without debt, but do it with a meaningful career waiting for them on the other side, using what they've learned. And we need, as we move forward, to see that become a widespread option for people like Ellie Lou.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I know I was just listening to a friend of mine. She, on social media, she had her son, her son. She just said a couple of things for her son to repeat after her, and it was, "I'm beautiful, I'm kind, I'm loving, I'm wonderful." Same things that I know that you're instilling in Ellie Lou, even as her life continues. And that's a part of it. That's the just came on. That's the reach that we got to do. And even with that reach, where did that name come from? Reach.
So the Reach Institute was the graduate program before we became a full university. And I think this idea, there's what it was originally for, and then there's where it is now. I think it was originally for this idea of helping reach into the communities where people are already. We started actually in Oakland, and there was this idea of this belief that in Oakland there weren't necessarily people there that could be great educators, and that was just wrong. That was built on all sorts of assumptions that if those people weren't reaching out to the traditional credentialing programs, it's because they weren't capable, and we needed to be reaching in to meet them where they are. But when I think now about what it also means is helping our students, especially these undergraduates, reach their full potential, right? There's this idea that college is for some people and not for others. And that's just not true. You shouldn't have to take on debt. You shouldn't have to leave the workforce. It'll be hard, because good things are hard and they're worth fighting for. But helping people realize that a college degree is within their reach, that's what we're here to do.
Wow. I love it. I love it. So let me ask you, what will be, going forward, what will be the perfect thing for Mallory and family? What is that? A lot of people, when you think about the future, they always talk about, "Oh, well, I want to be on an island with a tropical drink," and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
what is your future? What do you see? Think about Reach. You think about your family. Think about your past. What is the ultimate vision that you see and plans for your future?
The thing that I've learned is, man makes plans and God laughs. So I know anything I say here is not it. But here's what I heard somebody say once: is all human beings, to be fulfilled, need three things. They need someone to love, something to do, and something to look forward to. And when I think about my family, when I think about Reach, it all centers around those three things. So someone to love, I think one of the most important things that companies can do, and this is what I think a lot of mission-driven nonprofits get wrong, is they get this idea that, hey, as a nonprofit, we're family. Nope, That's wrong. That's
Mm,
wrong. I have Ellie Lou is my family. My husband Chase. Chase is my family. Reach University is filled with amazing people, and they are not going to be the ones who are there with me on my
mm,
deathbed, right?
mm.
That's my family. So I think the first thing that's really important at Reach is that work-life balance, is letting everybody go have their family and the ones they love, and making sure that, hey, we take care of each other, we work hard, but at the end of the day, you need to have space for your family. And
Wow.
that's something at Reach that we're working on today, but we're constantly trying to get better and better at, is what does it mean to take care of our employees so that they can take care of their families. So that's the someone to love. Something to do. I think that work is something that my dad, it's something that Patty, my track coach, that they taught me, that there is no such thing as feeling fulfilled in life without working hard for something. It doesn't have to be your job, but you got to work hard for something. And for me, it is this mission at Reach of, I want to see apprenticeship degrees become a mainstream thing in the United States, the same way they are in Europe, so that it's not an afterthought, it's not a consolation prize. People who get into Harvard choose to go get an apprenticeship degree instead of Harvard because they know it's as good or better in education. And that is the thing that I want to work on my entire life. And it's both a thing to do and my thing to look forward to. And so, when I think about what comes next, it's those three things. It's about building this beautiful organization that achieves this mission that I really care about and working hard towards it, but without ever losing sight of the fact that at the end of the day, family is family, and family always has to be the thing that comes first.
Wow. I love it. Now that was what we call gems, especially when we think about people that work and devote their time into whether their business, the corporation, nonprofits, but being able to, like you said, separate the two. You don't want it. I mean, I'm military. One thing I learned in the military, of course, is the spirit, the core, the teamwork. I mean, like a better word, some guys are like brothers, but then again, they're not family. And when we look at that and being able to separate that, we can understand, one, the value of who your family is, and two, the boundaries that you have to place, between the two. And then thirdly, how are you going to get even your employees or people that work for you to understand that process? Because now it's about growing. And when we look at that and you putting the value of family, free time, I'm going to say free time, but quality time in front of them and for us to grow as an organization, that's a whole different mindset. That's a whole different appreciation for me, if I was your employee, for you to even recognize the fact that, wow, she really cares about my family. She cares about me being outside of the workplace. That speaks volumes. So I definitely commend you on that. That's another insight that you don't hear a lot of whether CEOs or um, executive directors talk about that. So that's a whole nother level, and then the value that you place on family. So before we got through it, and you did an amazing job. How can somebody that wants to go through it? Well, two things. One, of course, is how do they contact Reach? And then the other thing is, because you dropped so much wisdom, give me some words of wisdom before we depart.
Absolutely. So anyone who wants to get in touch, very easy. It's info@reach.edu, info@reach.edu. And we'd love to hear from you, whether it's because you want to become a student, whether it's because you are a school district leader, or you're just curious about apprenticeship degrees. We always love to hear from people. So please don't hesitate to reach out. No pun intended. The
Mm.
second thing is, the words of wisdom I would have is, if there's anything I've learned, I grew up as the daughter of parents who revered education, but who didn't necessarily have the same opportunities. And I just always assumed growing up that I was going to get into these rooms someday, if I was lucky, and look around and find out that the reason that people who had college degrees and who had so much, that it was because they were just smarter and they knew so much more, and that the rest of us just didn't. And the big revelation for me was getting in there and looking around and realizing, with no disrespect, right, these people were smart. They were no smarter than any of the people I'd grown up with, who just didn't have the opportunities. And the reason why I think that wisdom matters is, again, it is so easy to look around and see something that we think is wrong in the world, and to assume that well, who am I to try to go fix that, right? That's for someone who knows more, who knows better. Who am I to go do anything about that? And the fact of the matter is, again, to this point, who are you not to? Nobody knows what's going on in this world. And so if you believe in something and you care about it, don't let this idea, this boogeyman, or this idea, this myth of someone out there who's smarter and who knows more, get in the way of you going to do things, because that person doesn't exist. There's no one this world needs more than you, with whatever it is that makes you passionate.
Wow. So many, so much wisdom that you departed. And I really appreciate you, Mallory, for actually coming on to the Let's Go show. We're just going to wrap it up. And, one thing that I say, let's go, baby. Peace. I'm out.